Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Never gonna get old. Never, never.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Good evening, Adega Outlaw. Good
Good
evening,
evening.
chat. How are
Hello,
you all?
everybody in chat.
How are you all doing? Good evening and welcome to Seven Kinds of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki, and with me today is, of course, the Mad Doctor, the Wordsmith, the Doctor of Disaster and Destruction,
Hold on 1 second.
Adega Outlaw.
I gotta go get a shovel. It's getting kind of deep. Okay, go ahead.
Master Wordsmith. We'll throw that in there too, because yes, the Mad Doctor of Disaster and Destruction, the Wordsmith, Doctor Adega Outlaw.
Thank you. And Stone Cold Loki.
And your
Master
title
of
grows.
ceremonies, man of many voices, the ultimate in narrators, and game aficionado, record aficionado, and comic book aficionado extraordinaire.
Okay, now we're
just throwing a few other things.
Stories by Irish. Good evening. Good evening, the lovely Sherry. Chris Persia, the Wrench of Wrenches, is here. Good evening, Chris. How are you doing? Tracy Asteria. Good evening, Tracy. How are you doing? DJ Ronnie G. Keely Chow. Roll Tide. Keely Roll Tide. Good evening, Psychodorp 9. The lovely Sherry. Good evening, Sherry. Louise Sparrow. Good evening, Terry Rose. How are you doing? Ryan Roger Ape says, hello, everyone. I hope you doing well. Cannot wait for the stream to start to watch two rising stars of content creation. Skull to you, my friend. If you haven't subscribed to Ryan Roger Ape, he does wonderful clips. He does wonderful uploads. Content creator. Call us rising stars. That man is a rising star. Thank you so much, Ryan. Loriana Creel. Hello, Loriana. That is a surprise.
Now I'm going to be nervous if she's here.
Listening while making dinner. Hell yes. All right. Good evening, Loriana. Thank you for dropping in. So what do you got for us tonight, Adega?
This is why I said I was going to be nervous, because she's in check. So probably will get to Fat Steven, and I don't want to give him any fuel to the fire, because before I cover what I gave you, it's St. Patrick's Day, and I'm half
St.
Irish.
Patty's Day. It's St. Patty's Day.
Yes, I don't drink, but I do like to have a good time. And I have a challenge for everybody out there to see if you're brave enough to share or even come close to my most embarrassing moment. If anyone could top this, hats off to you. So I'm going to share with you something that happened to me. And this is why it would take an awful lot to really get me embarrassed, because I have already been there. When my son, my oldest son, he was, I can't remember exact age, he was 3. He started running, literally running, when he was 11 months old. But we were flying to California from Iowa. Well, I had to go do something there. And he was just getting out of diapers and was having a hard time with things. So we're on this airplane ride, 4 hours. And, you get the kids all prepped to go on a plane beforehand. And, of course, he said he was fine. We get on the plane, and he says, the plane's starting to take off. Got to go potty. Well, he doesn't have a diaper on. He's a big boy now. Well, you're going to have to wait till the plane levels off. So the plane leveled off. Got to go potty. Well, his mom decided to do this first off. Took him to the bathroom on the plane. And this is a flight, it was 737, I think. It was 183 people on it. I do remember the number. You'll know why in a minute. So she took him to the potty. And he came back, and his big thing was, if something was broken light, or light broken. And he comes back, potty broken. I'm going, what's wrong with it? And my wife says, well, it doesn't have any water in it, so he thinks it's broken. He won't go. Why don't you try? So I tried with him. Nothing. He wouldn't go. He swore up and down it was broken. So we said, all right, well, you're just going to have to hold it for a while. We didn't, like I said, we didn't have any diapers for the kid. And it got down to, I could see the kid's teeth sweating. We had been on a flight for 3.5 hours getting ready to land, and he couldn't take it anymore. And it wasn't 3.5, it was about 3 hours. So I took him, we're riding in the middle of the plane. I took him to the bathroom in the very back. And I got the bright idea, I shut the door, brought him in. I said, look, it works. I'll show you. So I whip it out, and he was pissed. He goes, potty broken. He opens up the door. I grab the door. My pants fall down because I'm getting ready to go pee, fall out into the cab. Here goes this 3-year-old with his hands up in the air running down the aisle going, no! And everyone turns around to see this half-naked guy, my wang hanging out. The stewardess right above me looking down, and gratefully, I am nothing to be embarrassed about when it comes to girth. But there's 183 people on the plane who knows exactly what I look like. Molesting the kid in the middle of a plane. That was not fun. And even first class kind of got a hold of that. So it was just a half hour later, and I got up with him when the plane landed. They say people started grabbing their bags. I picked him up, and people knew what had happened, so they kind of moved out of the way. And I got to first class, and they're all giving me dirty looks. I held him out, and I said, "You want any of this?" And they moved out of the way. So yeah, top that. Involuntary exposure with a running kid in front of 183 people. I dare you. Do you have anything to top that?
No.
All right. I think 1 or 2 people may have heard that story before, but that's true. So no, you can't embarrass me. Good luck.
Well, can't embarrass Adega Outlaw.
All right. Oh, now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to what I wanted to talk about. I gave you a series of pictures. This is one of my favorite subjects when it comes to conspiracy stuff. This has nothing to do with people. This is the best I can do. There was a book before NASA decided to start the space race. Or go at least to the moon. They gathered as much information as they could from all kinds of sources and cataloged that. So you're looking at one of the pages. It's a weird written book. The pages are extra wide. They're not even legal size. It's bizarre. So it's a catalog of reported lunar events, and it goes back all the way to the 1500s, where people were observing with eyes, with telescopes. You see a lot of these here, the 17 up to the 1800s, and the things that they saw are recorded. A few of them you might be able to attribute to maybe the lenses weren't right, but these are recorded by scientists. Like in the dead center, D. Cassini, which says small whitish cloud that he saw on the surface of the moon. The nebulous appearance, white spots. A lot of times when there were lunar events, when either it was the moon was dark or they had a eclipse, they saw reported over and over again flashing lights on the surface of the moon, or lightning, blue haze in craters, various different things. And that blue haze in crater actually came back to haunt NASA a little bit because it was spoken of by one of their astronauts. But these recorded anomalies, which go completely I'm waiting for someone to top that. I figured it'd make a good scene in a movie someday. But these recorded events were cataloged, and NASA never spoke of it. People were wondering, or more thought of as our race to the moon. Some thought of it was military. Others thought of it was a show of strength against the Soviet Union. And like most of America thought, because it's there and it's hard. But there's something else there. And a lot of you people know this, but we're going to kind of go over that because, like I said, it's one of my favorite subjects, and I think we did this over a year ago, and I wanted to rehash on some of the new things. This image was one of the ones that slipped through NASA's screening because a lot of the images will be blurred, various different techniques that they use to make sure that you don't see it. But the early ones, the one that NASA did, they're not high resolution, but high quality film. It's not digital. So their ability to fudge the images is much more difficult when you get the original film. And the original film, lo and behold, are all gone. So what we have is remnants. But here's a tower on the moon, plain as day. I think even Google Maps still you can catch it. It'd be a little bit blurrier than this, but I don't remember the exact location. But it is findable. But I wanted to read something about this guy. I found it kind of interesting. He had well, we'll just get into it. And the pictures, one of the pictures in there is obviously fake. And you can see when we get to it how it can be easily manipulated to make people believe things that aren't there. But I like to try and stick with the original sources. So, there's an introduction to this. But we're talking about this book that was written by, it says George Leonard released Somebody Else is on the Moon in the United Kingdom in 1977. G. Leonard is a pseudonym used by someone who wants to remain anonymous. So that's not a real name, just an author name, and no one ever really released it. But this guy had information and had connections, and some of it we'll be able to go through with this article. This well-informed individual who had gained access to a wealth of knowledge, including top secret material. This is written really weird. This is not me misreading it, sorry. This book contains 35 images, each with NASA code number, dozens of detailed drawings. I haven't been able to find this book available again. I did read it once a long time ago. Drawings generated according to the author from high-quality, large-format NASA photographs, expert remarks, and an extensive bibliography, all of which lead the reader to a shocking conclusion. For many years, NASA and several well-known scientists have recognized that traces of intelligent life had been discovered on the moon. However, this information is carefully concealed. The International Society did not place much emphasis on the book because the contents were unverified. However, in the early 1990s, astonishing, incredible information that remnants of the oldest and indisputable alien civilization may have been found on the moon was proven. I did show you, I remember over a year ago, the one image from NASA where it has a building. It was where if you recall, it was about 6-7 years ago, they sent a nuke up to hit the moon. They said it was a test for something to check for water. But when you saw one of the NASA stills, it was one of these scientists that were working with it at NASA. He had his arm on an image, and I haven't pulled it up. I just thought of it now. He had his arm on his image, and if you enlarge the image, you can see a rectangle building on the moon. That was their target. Now, we haven't put any buildings there that we know of, and that's what they hit, or at least they tried to hit. Okay. Ken Johnston, the former leader of NASA Lunar Laboratory Picture Service, as well as numerous other former NASA engineers and scientists, broke the news at a press conference in Washington. NASA's cover-up of Apollo pictures depicting ancient lunar ruins was the key theme. Ken Johnston revealed that what had been kept concealed from the rest of the world for the past 40 years, the Apollo astronauts found and photographed architectural and technological remains of an ancient civilization on the moon. Furthermore, the astronauts uncovered a previously undisclosed gravity control device. Perhaps they have mastered the technology of anti-gravity. During the Apollo program, Ken Johnston, bosses at NASA instructed him to trash those photographs, but he defied instructions and preserved them. Some of the images were shown to the press by Johnston. They represented extraterrestrial civilization proof. What did the journalists notice when they were startled? The film includes city ruins, massive spherical things made of glass, floating stone. There's dozens of authentic pictures, and I didn't put them all in there. Like I said, there's about 36 real ones that we know of. Floating stone buildings and castles, and even a robot's head, which I didn't know until I read this article. I don't remember it in the book because that was a long time ago. The Americans, according to Johnston, delivered something to Earth that NASA had kept hidden for generations. There have been a number of discoveries on the moon that have perplexed geologists, including the finding of an orange glass pyramid whose origins is still unknown. Something else must have been discovered that we are not aware of. Following the meeting, individual NASA whistleblowers uploaded many of the same eye-popping lunar photographs of NASA's numerous websites. These are high-resolution photographs. People all throughout the world, including regular individuals, were able to view these incredible images without instruction because of the internet. Without restriction, my mistake. It is true that NASA has been hiding the real moon for all this time. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to show you that original paperwork that constitutes a collection of things for hundreds of years of observations that you can find them now too. There's images that pop up now and then from amateur photographers who are using telescopes, various different things of high resolution, where they can get to the moon, and you'll see some of these dark craters or holes where there's either electrical storms or ships with they're casting shadows that will be traveling extremely high speeds across the surface of the moon. That's all there. Following the extraordinary news of the conference, an interview with Richard Hoagland, a NASA consultant founder and chief researcher of the Enterprise Mission Organization. He served as a scientific consultant for NBC News. Sorry about the train in the back. NASA JPL laboratories during the Apollo 11. He and Johnston were the ones who leaked the information. His thoughts on the newly found culture are as follows. I believe the Apollo project proved the presence of an incredible, old, but yet human civilization on the moon. However, let me see, this is a bad written sentence here. It's terrible to consider in whose knee our forefathers put it down. However, we've only been allowed to share a small portion of the evidence NASA has received concerning an ancient, long-lost human civilization, which suggests that man previously roamed through the whole solar system. This is supported by data collected from Mars, which NASA has classified. And I've shown you pictures from Mars too. Are you inquiring if the new Atlantis ruins have been discovered on the moon? To begin with, I believe it would be more accurate to refer to ancient Atlantis. They wrote this weird because it's a conversation that he's having with this reporter. That civilization's great science allowed them to travel from Earth to the moon hundreds or perhaps millions of years ago and construct structures out of substances that resemble glass. This may be deduced from the materials that have been made public. For example, there is an Egyptian tale about Thoth, the god of knowledge, who is said to have fallen from the moon and taught man language, writing, building, and other skills. It is also conceivable to establish or disprove the presence of a civilization on the moon by uniting the efforts of multiple governments. It is vital to send a cooperative mission to the moon, and I agree with that. On the moon, what technologies were used? The book Dark Mission, NASA's Secret History was written and released by Johnson and Hoagland in an attempt to inform the entire world about the true narrative that awaits everyone on the moon. They claim that some of the technology discovered on the moon show a high level of technological progress. The Soviet Union sent an all-terrain vehicle to the moon that captured images of an ancient civilization. However, they were categorized after a careful examination, meaning KGB put them away, kind of like our CIA and other agencies do. Thus, not only NASA, but also the Soviet government kept secrets concerning the existence of remains of structures created by an alien civilization, as well as technology, all of which may be discovered not only on the moon, but also on other worlds throughout the solar system. And again, I've showed you things on Mars, but there's things on the moons around Jupiter, Pluto, various different things that I haven't got into yet. There was even a widespread belief that Americans had never traveled to the moon, and that the episode with the landing of an American astronaut was merely in a studio, for example. That is a fabrication. I can guarantee you that was a fabrication. The landing really did take place. The writers of the book believe that the myths is a purposeful military deception based on NASA's facts and research. It is intended to conceal NASA's discovery of the moon and return to the Earth. There's a fake picture in this article, so I didn't get this one to Loki. But it looks like one of those Southwest Pueblo Indian structures. But you can, and if it's a real picture, I'm blown away because it looks like there's vegetation there too. But I don't believe that this one's real.
What about this one? You added this one at the end.
Yeah, that one has been manipulated many times because you can see something in the center, but if you look at the top, there's buildings there. That is Arizona's Great Crater. You can go visit it anytime you want. But some people will manipulate these images since it already looks high res, and you can go anywhere and look up moon craters, and you'll find this one, several others that have been manipulated to deceive people, to make them believe in something just because they want clicks or what have you. But yeah, that's a fake image. Let me get back into this. What did NASA discover on the moon? That's the big question. It was a form of insurance against the dreadful question, what NASA actually discovered on the moon. The authors argued that the construction of the myth of the moon gave NASA confidence in the ability to keep everything linked to their failed moon study mission. Hide the fact that the astronauts were given top secret orders to report on all of the old alien technologies discovered. According to certain academics, notably Richard Hoagland, an alien species previously utilized the moon as a transit base while conducting activities on Earth. Their theories are supported by folklore and myth from various cultures throughout the world. Thousands of kilometers of lunar city ruins, giant translucent domes atop massive bases, numerous tunnels, and other constructions push scientists to reevaluate their perspective on the problem that plagued the natural satellite. Another major scientific study is the origins of the moon and the characteristics of its motions in related to the Earth. Some believe that it is an artificial satellite. It isn't natural. There are theories that it is actually a space station, disguised as a moon because it's very unique in our whole solar system. But so is Earth. Mars, maybe once upon a time. There is even theories that Venus, millions of years ago, could have been life. Habitable. Natural geological formations cannot be blamed for certain partially ruined items on the moon's surface. I can go on and on and on. There is, let's see, what picture do you have? Yes, yeah, they did. There is also, I think, I can't remember where I discussed this. That's the actual site. One of these days, if I look it up, but I'm sure you could find it quicker than I can. There's actual coordinates where you can find Google. Those are real. Those are real images. That doesn't occur naturally. Um,
No, not the straight lines. No.
right. Those are buildings on the moon. You cannot tell me otherwise. I mean, you can tell me otherwise, but I won't believe you. Now, here
No.
is something for the religious people, because I like to tie everything, whether you be scientific minded, whether you be religious, or whether you believe evolutionary. On the religious side of things, once upon a time, and this goes into many, many different cultures that now exist, there's two different stories of mass events that affected all of humanity, the first being the flood. And indications pre-flood, you look at these ancient structures, like I was studying um, more of the pyramids and how they are beginning to think of them more as like a Tesla device where they can convert um, planetary energy into usable energy, the Earth's magnetic field, just like a Tesla device. Um, but that was far older than what we're being told, because we know the Sphinx. They say it's only so many thousand years old, but the water damage proves that it's far older than what they're telling us. But for those of you who are on the religious side of things, it tends to match, because having an extinction event with Noah like that, the people who are off planet wouldn't have any place to go to and would have disappeared. Or if the Tower of Babel was a real thing, if God really did confuse all the languages. Could you imagine being on a lunar base and all of a sudden you cannot read your instruments? You can't read the instructions on your ship. You're stranded. Everything falls apart. So that's for you religious people. It ties in there. For everyone else, and I, like I said, people know that I'm on the religious side of things. For everyone else, it does match as well, because of all these ancient stories of Atlantis, of finding footprints that are side by side with dinosaurs, and they've been trying to destroy them, and yet the evidence is there. Um, we have been around a very, very long time, and we have done some amazing things. And just like now, there are always stupid people that ruin it for the rest of us. But I did want to share this with you because our universe, our understanding of what is out there, has come and gone over and over again. And I'm kind of getting frustrated at being lied to by all these institutions, you know? Anyway, happy St. Patty's Day. I am still waiting for someone to beat my embarrassing moment.
Is no one going to be able to beat Adega's embarrassing moment on St. Patty's Day? So tonight, thank you, Adega. Tonight, we're going to be going over Pain Part 4. I don't know if this is the finale or not. This is the last part of this he has up, written by our good friend R.M. Staniforth. I woke up feeling foggy and tired. Tried opening my eyes, but the bright light over my head was blasting my eyeballs as if the light was angry that I had been in such a deep sleep. I tried to sit up, but my whole body felt 3 times more heavy as usual, as if gravity had somehow increased. As my senses returned, I could hear a gentle beep, filling the room with a rhythmic but annoying noise. As my most recent memories returned to me, I realized that I must be in a hospital. "Ah, good morning, Agent Barcliff," came a familiar voice. I hadn't seen Arthur since before I started Pain field training. "Congratulations, by the way, on completing field training." "How did I get here? How long was I out?" I asked Arthur, squinting at him through the bright lights. "Oh, your team loaded you up on a helicopter that took you here. You've been under anesthesia for a week." Arthur replied as if the fact that I had been unconscious for a week wasn't any big news. "A week? Why the hell have I been under anesthesia for a week?" I asked. The shock of that news helped me wake up from my anesthesia-induced grogginess. I tried to sit up, but was still feeling weak. Arthur leaned over and pushed a button on the hospital bed, which started inclining. Well, one does not simply amputate an arm and attach a new one in a day. That takes some time, Arthur told me as I reached an inclined position. My arm. Oh shit, I forgot all about that. The last thing that I remember before fainting was that my arm bone was no longer inside my arm. The Wendigo had opened up my arm from elbow to wrist and damn near ripped the bone out. I looked down at my left arm to assess the condition. I expected to see a heavily bandaged arm with screws and rods sticking out, but I had a hard time believing what I saw. My arm and hand were now made fully of metal, but it resembled the anatomy of an actual arm. Picture what an arm would look like without the skin attached. My lower arm looked exactly like that, but the muscles and bone were made entirely from textured metal. Thick, overlapping strips of lined textured metal worked their way down my arm from elbow to wrist, ending with more polished and shiny sections that I attached to my now metal elbow. I moved my arm and hand around. With every movement, you could see the various metal components moving and contracting, functioning exactly as a real arm would. And it took no extra effort or thought to control it. It was just like moving my arm. I was mesmerized, watching this technology work, but also somewhat creeped out by it at the same time. Arthur, what the fuck is this? I asked, neither with an angry nor a happy tone, only shock. Ah, yes, it would appear that you now have a robotic arm. By the time you got here, not only was your arm destroyed, but it was completely infected. Wendigo are truly disgusting creatures. Doctors were forced to amputate. So you made me a fucking cyborg? Ah, yeah, more or less, yes. When you are injured in the line of duty as an agent of pain, we don't simply send our investment home to live a disabled life. We do everything we can to ensure that you come out as good as, if not better than, before the injury. Better? I asked, watching the components of my upper arm move around as I wiggled my now metal fingers. Ah, yes, you'll find that it's much more durable and stronger than what you had before. Now that you're awake, our technicians can configure your sense of touch and then add the skin. Rest assured, my lad, that it will look just like a regular flesh and blood arm. Thanks, I told Arthur. This was a lot to take in after waking up from several days of anesthesia. On one hand, no pun intended, they cut my arm off and basically turned me into a cyborg without even giving me a heads up. On the other hand, I now have some of the most incredible technology in the world integrated into my body. It was a lot to take in. So I decided that it would be best to wait it out and see how I would feel about it later. Arthur, you still hadn't told me what the box thing is. This question had been gnawing at the back of my head throughout my entire training. The HD that had attacked me was demanding to know where the box was. I had asked Arthur, but he told me he couldn't fill me in on that until after I had completed field training. Ah, yes, of course. Now that you are completed with your training, I will come through with my end of the bargain. After the doctors release you, we'll take a bit of a field trip, Arthur said before standing up and walking out of the room. The next couple of days were spent with pain tech nerds meddling with my arm. As Arthur had promised, they attached a skin-like substance. Looked just like skin, but felt just a little off. You wouldn't even know by looking at it, though. The skin looked so real that I wouldn't believe that it was a metal arm had I not seen them attach the skin to it. As the techs were adjusting the sensory settings, I wondered how widespread this technology was. How many people were walking around the world with robotic limbs? Finally, after the tech nerds were done with my new arm, I was released. They brought me in a freshly tailored suit of black, the official off-duty public uniform of pain agents. I was then ushered to a blacked-out Cadillac sedan. The man behind the wheel started driving without a word. Honestly, I had no idea where my destination was, but the stone-faced driver didn't look like he was about to tell me anything. Finally, I recognized the neighborhood of my inherited home. and soon after the large house came into view looming over the regular-sized houses in the neighborhood, I noticed immediately that the gates had been fixed, and the landscaping had been restored to its previous snooty glory. "Arthur is waiting for you inside, sir," said the driver, speaking for the very first time. I walked inside the house to find that everything inside had been patched up from the disrepair in which I'd seen it last. Glass windows had been replaced, bullet holes were gone, bookshelves stood upright, bloodstains were nowhere to be found. Walked down the hall to where I knew I would find Arthur. I entered the study and typed the code into the desk phone, revealing the bookshelf doorway leading to the secret vault room. As I walked in, I found Arthur sitting, waiting for me. "Ah, yes, good morning, Agent Barcliffe. We'll keep this short and to the point, I promise. It's time to tell you about the box." He knocked twice in the middle of the concrete desk, paused for a few seconds, then knocked 3 more times. After those last 3 knocks, a tiny, well-disguised door opened up on the desktop, revealing a keypad. Arthur punched in several numbers, and the little door closed up as fast as it had opened. Another door slid open from the floor, and a heavy-looking metal safe rose from the hole. This one had a classic metal dial on it. Arthur spun the metal dial in several directions and eventually opened the little safe, from which he pulled out a small 6-inch cube made from black metal. "That's it? That's what almost got me killed?" "Yes, my boy, this is the box," Arthur said as he placed the cube onto the desk. The laptop lit up, displaying a small password box on the screen. "This little cube contains all the data for Pain. It contains every known location of every numinous entity, portal, agent, etc., etc. There are only 6 of these in existence, 1 for each populated continent. Your grandfather was entrusted as the box holder for North America. Twice a year, on the 21st of June and December, the box holders meet and synchronize their data." "So, why does all of this involve me?" I asked. "The box holder of Pain retains the right to name their successor. Mr. Barcliffe named you as the next box holder." "But why me?" I asked. This question had been eating at me since the day I joined Pain. I barely knew my grandfather. So why the hell did he tell Pain to recruit me when he died? For only a slight second, I saw a slight twinge of annoyance on Arthur's usually expressionless face. It was gone just as quickly as it had arrived. "That's a good question, Daniel. I knew Mr. Barcliffe quite well, yes, but even I do not have an answer to that question." We sat together in awkward silence for a few seconds before Arthur broke the silence again. "The agreement with the board is that after you complete 2 years as a field agent, and subsequently 1 year as an agent, you will then be given your rightful position as box holder." "Is it common to make people commit several years as an agent first?" "Nothing about this situation is common, Mr. Barcliffe. You see, this is the first time a box holder has named a successor who was not already an agent of Pain." I sat there, awkwardly again. I don't understand why my mysterious asshole of a grandfather wrapped me up in this, but to be honest, I'm so glad that he did. My new life was more meaning behind it than it ever had before, all thanks to old Grandpa Barcliffe. "Well, now that we are wrapped up here, it's time that you rejoined your team. You already have a mission concerning a siren. Are you ready, Agent Barcliffe?" "Yes, sir," I said, relieved that this weird conversation was over. I went back out to the living room to find my new team waiting for me. I was so relieved to see that Sarmesha was on my new team. I was terrified of the crazy old bastard, but I loved him like a brother. The man had saved my life when faced with that stinky-ass Wendigo. How you doing there, Smash Head? I asked Smushy. Somehow I still live, he said, with his trademark raspy chuckle. After meeting the rest of the crew, Arthur let me know that, given that the box was located in the Barcliffe mansion, they would like to station my entire team at my home, to which I agreed. We all filled into a vault, where Arthur and our new team lead debriefed us on our mission. Basically, some crazy organ harvesting ring was using a siren to lure young men to a remote cabin in southern Canada. They would then gut the poor bastard of their major organs and sell them all over the world on the black market. The siren, known only as Aria, was the leader of the ring. She had over 24 heavily armed men, hypnotized by her song to assist her and guard her operation. Our mission was clear and simple. To kill the siren, our HDUs had been modified with earpieces that would distort the sound of the siren so that we would not become entranced. No human is immune to the song of the siren, so it was essential that we kept these earpieces on at all times. Before the end of the day, I found myself geared up in the back of a cargo airplane to southern Canada. The back door opened, exposing the pitch black sky. As the light turned green, we took our turns jumping out. With a small running start, I jumped out the back and embraced the chilly wind, holding the position that I had been trained to do. The thing about skydiving is that you don't feel like you're falling. Instead, you experience the freeing feeling of flight. I embraced the comforting wind as I plunged over 100 miles an hour into the darkness. My HDU did its thing, and the terrain below me lit up, exposing the beautiful snow-capped mountains. After landing and packing our chutes, we made our way on foot for the next several hours until the team leader, Agent Hanlon, signaled for us to stop. We're about 600 meters out from the cabin. Hamlin's voice came through my earpiece. Remember, expect heavy resistance from the siren's crew. She has them all essentially hypnotized, and they will do anything to protect her. Per Hanlon's plan, we split into groups of 3. We would circle the cabin and approach from 5 different angles. I was teamed up with Shramesh and another short but quick agent named Alvin. My team was to approach from the front of the cabin. As we trudged through the woods, Shramesh put his hand up quietly, signaling us to stop. Someone there, he whispered, just as my HGU thermal imaging picked up a man carrying a rifle about 100 meters away. Cover me, Shramesh said, with a chuckle as he slung his own rifle over his back and withdrew his long knife. Alvin and I kept our rifles aimed at the armed guard as Shramesh stealthily maneuvered his way through the woods. I watched in awe as my crazy comrade snuck up behind the man like the fucked up ninja he was. Before the guard even knew that anyone was near, Shramesh sliced the man's throat. Blood jumped out of the man's wound as if it had been somewhere to be, and the man fell to the ground. He put his hand up to his neck as if that would somehow help him at all. All I could hear through my earpiece was Shramesh chuckling, proud of his kill. By the time Alvin and I reached Shramesh, the guard was long dead. We dragged the body behind the bush and continued on our approach. We stopped as the cabin came into sight. It was a small log cabin tucked into the forest. It's hard to imagine such a place was being used to harvest organs. If you didn't know, it would appear to be a picturesque family cabin that you would find on a holiday greeting card. A single gunshot cracked through the night, destroying the previous silence. Branches in the tree above my head cracked and fell, letting me know that the bullet hadn't missed by much. We dove for cover behind trees as more gunshots rang out through the night. Using a tree as a barricade, I leaned around the corner to see where our attacker was. I saw a man with a rifle shooting at us from a window in the cabin. I targeted the asshole and pulled the trigger. My shot was dead on, and his head blasted brain matter onto the green shutters of the cabin. I didn't have much time to celebrate, though, as more men appeared from the cabin and a hidden exterior cellar door. The woods were now alive with gunfire in every direction. My earpiece buzzed with confirmations of contact from all 5 teams. Keep approaching, Hanlon's voice ordered. Weed that siren bitch out! The 3 of us took turns between moving forward and providing cover. These guards were no match for Payne, and the body count quickly piled up. We were only 50 meters away from the cabin, and 10 or more bodies lay strewn across the ground, leaving small trails of blood trickling down the dirt. That's when the singing started. A loud, distorted singing was now coming through the earpieces, telling us that Arya was nearby. Luckily, the earpieces were doing their thing, distorting the sound into weird, pitchy screams and tones, leaving the melody only barely noticeable. What the earpieces failed to do was block the volume. Oh my God, was it loud and shrill. These earpieces were designed to keep gunshots down to a certain decibel, but they failed to work on that voice. It was so loud it became hard to focus. I found myself squinting through my HDU. They must have known that this would interfere with us because a new wave of desperate gunfire broke from all around the cabin. I shot back, but the sound made it so hard to focus on my aim. Shemesh was clearly having trouble too, so he stepped to the side to get a better view like the fearless motherfucker that he was. A bullet struck his helmet, completely destroying the side. He fell to the side but seemed to be okay as he rose back to his knees. I could see various wires dangling from the broken helmet, exposing his ear. My heart dropped when I realized that the earpiece was no longer attached to his ear. "Plug your fucking ears!" I yelled. But it was already too late. He stood all the way up and dropped his rifle to the ground. "So beautiful," he said, as he removed the damaged helmet, revealing a smile on his scarred face. But I could see in his eyes that he wasn't right. He looked possessed and started walking out from his cover, exposing himself to gunfire. "Get the fuck down!" I yelled at him. But it was to no avail. The song of the siren had entrapped his mind. Shemesh started walking forward to the cabin as bullets shot past him. I got up and started running after him so I could force him back to cover. But I was just a second too late. A bullet caught him right between the eyes and carried straight through. The back of his head burst open like a water balloon, sending bloody chunks of skull fragments and brain matter several feet into the air and splattering across the visor of my helmet. I caught him before he hit the ground and pulled him back to cover his album and sprayed the cabin with suppressive fire. Although I knew there was no chance that Shemesh was still alive, I still carried him until I could place him in a safe spot. There was still a smile on his face. This man had smiled through every horrible moment in his life, so it only seemed fitting that he would die smiling. I felt a new anger boil in me as the reality sunk in that my friend, my teammate, was dead. In only a few seconds, that anger turned to rage. Between the rage and the adrenaline, I barely registered the distorted singing anymore. It became irrelevant. I cared only about one thing: killing that bitch and anyone helping her. I took careful aim at the window from which gunfire was coming from, and shot at the window until it stopped. Before I knew, I was at a full sprint towards the cabin, as fighting still commenced around the forest. I reached the cabin. Another guard popped around the corner. I shot that man with every last bullet in my magazine. Even after he was on the ground, I shot his head until it looked like nothing more than hamburger meat. I reloaded my gun and kicked the fucking door off its hinges. A hand reached out, grabbing the barrel of my rifle. No problem. I pulled my knife from its sheath on my chest and shoved it into his neck, making sure to rip through as much flesh as possible before carrying on to the main cabin. The middle of the cabin living room stood a tall, naked woman with large feathered wings on her back. She was still singing, louder than ever, but that sound only infuriated me more. To any other man, she would look seductively beautiful, but all I could see was the reason that Shemesh was dead. I lowered my weapon. Shooting her wasn't good enough. It's time to see just how well this robotic arm works. I walked across the room. I could see the confusion and panic in her eyes that her song had no effect on me. For the first time in her life, she stood powerless, and that terrified her. She lunged at me with both arms outstretched, trying to get my helmet. Before she could touch me, I punched with the metal arm, knocking her to her knees, with blood now covering her pretty face. I reached down with my cyborg arm and grabbed her by the jaw, pulling her back to her feet. She tried to sing her song, but I tightened my grip. She wasn't going to sing her way out of this. I squeezed her jaw with all the strength in my arm as she frantically tried to rip my hand away. The performance of my new cyborg arm did not disappoint. I heard and felt her jawbones cracking underneath my new and powerful fingers. With one last burst of strength, I ripped her lower jaw clean off of her face. She fell to the ground as I threw her jaw to the ground, her tongue still dangling out of the gaping hole that was the entrance to her throat. So I reached down and ripped her tongue out too. As the rest of my team entered into the cabin, I stood over the siren, watching demented, jawless face gurgle on blood, no longer able to sing. We weren't going to let her off that easy, so instead we kept her alive. Last I saw her, she was chained up and being placed in a helicopter with a medic there who had one job: keep her alive, but make sure she would never sing or speak again. You know, I'm not sure what pain will do with her, but I hope it hurts. We found the organ harvesting equipment in the cellar. Metal tables with surgical instruments were everywhere. The apparent surgeon was found freshly dead. He sliced his own at some point during the battle. We wound a couple of styrofoam boxes in the freezer that contained human livers. Worst thing we found was a jar that had eyeballs suspended in some sort of preservative. We counted 52, 26 pairs, 26 people murdered at this cabin. After everything was wrapped up and debriefings were done, I finally made it back home the following night. I placed my souvenir on my dresser, which was now suspended in a jar of embalming fluid that I had recovered from the cellar. I collapsed on my bed, furious in myself that I was unable to save Samesh. He had saved my life on our first mission, but I was unable to return the favor. Although I had done everything possible to hold myself together since his death, I was absolutely exhausted and finally let the tears flow. Just as I started drifting off to sleep, I heard a voice calling my name, accompanied by a scratching. I looked up and heard it again. "Daniel, I need to talk to you," the voice said. "Who's there?" I asked. "Over here." I turned my head to see a large white cat with eyes of pure gold at the window. "Can you let me in?" the cat asked after we made eye contact. I should have been shocked at a cat talking to me. It's not something that happens, just every other day. But after the way my life had gone the past 7 months, honestly, nothing could surprise me anymore. I opened the window and the cat jumped onto my bed. "I need to talk to you about Arthur," the white cat said to me. "I think he had something to do with your grandfather's death." And that is part 4 of Pain. And we're going to have to wait. This is not something I'm going to be able to do next week. We're going to have to wait for part 5.
Oh, he does it to us again.
He does it to us again. I really, R.M. Staniforth, if you haven't heard this guy, absolutely wonderful, wonderful stories.
Yep, absolutely. Totally agree. And again, master of narration presents us with a near flawless representation of what was
Thank
written.
you. It sucks the Russian's dead. I like the Russian. I
Yeah, I
take
did
care
too.
of problem. I take care of problem.
Yeah.
And Chris Persia says, Adega, he learned from you how to lead people wanting more. Louise Sparrow says she's loving it. It's got supernatural and grim vibes. Lady Miss says thank you to both of us for the wonderful, fun stories.
I trust Louise's opinion. She's a well-read person, knows her stuff.
So
I agree.
That was a crazy night. We talked about the moon. We got our last story in for pain. At
Right.
least the last one for a little while. We'll do something new next week. There's a new one he came out with that's my daughter went missing 1 year ago, and today she's alive. So, but it's short. I don't want to. Okay, so I'll find us a good story to continue.
I will have one for sale soon too.
Ah, yes. Please tell us about that. Please tell us what you have been up to before we get out of here, guys. See, Adega's got something wonderful to tell you guys.
Naughtiness. Actually, um, some of you will probably know who's that's Brandon Staniforth, the big fantasy author. A lot of people like his stuff. Never read it. Haven't got a clue, but the people respect him. And then he came up recently, and I learned this through. If you don't listen to Broken Entertainment, he's a good guy to listen to. But I was listening to his report on him, and the guy, the author Staniforth, actually is using um, Kickstarter now instead of his publisher. And he said, because this guy's made lots of money at this, if he had to do it again, he would do it by self-publishing. And self-publishing is different now than it used to be. I found that even though I'm not a big fan of how Amazon treated smaller publishers, individual self-publishers they treat actually quite very well. That way they can keep a monopoly on the publishing company. So I got suckered in. It's very easy to do. Evolution for a limited time. Very soon, I'll let you guys know, will be coming out in hardback, not in the paperback.
I'm getting two.
Including two things of fan fiction, new fonts. It looks better. It's done a lot better than the original release, and it will be called the second edition. Those of you who have the first edition have something special. It will never look like that again. But there will be a limited release of hardback, then it will go to paperback. And following that, the Blood Witch will be next, and then the rest of the books.
Nice. Okay, I'm getting two. And two in hardback. I'm getting two in hardback. Guys, we will, as soon as Adega gives me that information, I will get it out. We'll have a
I'm hoping
stream.
it will be by this time next week, if not sooner. So, yeah, uh, I'm looking forward to it.
So
People have
we're
been wanting the hardback or at least a copy, physical copy, for the longest time. I haven't been able to do it. Jostling around with bad editors and publishing companies that just were having issues of one or another. So I'm doing it solo. And Louise, I think she's read the second book now. I don't know how clean it was, but I did put it up for sale. And I owe you, Louise, just because I feel obligated. So if you want something else from me, I would be happy to give it to you. But she's said some very, very nice things, and I do believe she was honest about my writing. So I'm looking forward to making people happy. So there you go. That was the news.
all right. I am getting one. We are getting books, hardback versions of Evolution. I cannot wait. Stephen Glenn says, hail to the halls of Valhalla community and Stone_Loki and the Great Wrenches. Happy St. Patty's Day. Happy St. Patty Days to you, Stephen Glenn, and to everybody out there. It has been a wonderful day. It has been absolutely wonderful. We are almost through with the week. Louis Sparrow says, you don't owe me. I loved it. You're not going to talk him out of it, Louis. He's going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to find out what she thought of the second book too. So, well, she said she loved it. Hopefully, that was the second book, not the first book. Because, anyway, regardless, I love the fact that I'm in a position where I am, that people like what is coming out of the brain, and I'm glad to be able to share it. And I'm glad to be able to, if it makes money, which with Amazon is supposed to, I will be able to give that to my children.
I was just thinking. I was just thinking that
Dangerous thing when Loki thinks.
I'm going to I'm going to want a signed copy.
Yeah, and I will give you guys a PO box if anyone wants that, so you'll be able to have that.
We might do like a giveaway or something. I don't know. We might do like a giveaway, a signed copy, something. I might have to get 3 books.
I'd be happy to help out. And if it's a do it with a charity thing, I'd be happy to help out with that too. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, I am at your service, Loki.
All right, guys. Thank you so very much for being here tonight. Big thank you to Adega Outlaw, the mad doctor of disaster and destruction, the wordsmith, the man himself, Adega Outlaw. Thank you for being here, brother. Thank you all for being here in chat and hanging out with us tonight as we talked about the moon and the very last episode of Pain until we can get Mr. Stanaport to write more.
And my most embarrassing moment.
And Adega's most embarrassing moment that no one was able to top.
Not in chat. I'm waiting.
Not in chat. I know we do have someone in chat that was streaming bare ass after spilling wine all over her pants. How about that?
No. I was on a plane with 183 people looking at me with the stewardess. I know they call themselves flight attendants, but I like to call them stewardess. They may like to be called that, but either way, standing right above me, looking down at my junk, along with all the heads down the aisles, looking back at this guy leaning in the aisle. Yes, she may be on a stream, but if people get paid to do that on Twitch or OnlyFans. Me, this was an involuntary reaction trying to hold a door from a 3-year-old running down the aisle. So it doesn't beat it. Nice attempt.
Commando Sugar Cookie. And Darth Arlena remembers. I remember that one, Loki. Yes. All right, we're out of here. Guys, be great. Be excellent to each other. Always speak friend enter. And we will see you all next week on 7 Kinds of Mischief.
Good night.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.